Recording.
Live.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cast Consciousness. Um, I am Francisco Randon.
This is Sarv Mithaqiyan. Hello, everyone.
Hi. And you'll notice that we have video going. This is our first attempt at doing it broadcast. I guess it's actually not the first. Sarv and I did try to do a previous one.
Yes.
And we decided not to share that one. So this is going to be the first one that you're seeing where we're learning about how to use the video to do some segments with the crawl at the bottom with some visual elements, and you getting to see our faces while we do this.
Yes. Cast Consciousness is coming to you live.
Yeah, there it is. We might actually end up rebranding it. We'll have to see sort of how it goes. We haven't even talked about that really, but I guess we could still keep calling it Cast Consciousness for now.
We could rebrand. Yeah, I'm not good with brands, but we could try some. We could do anything. The universe is our mysterious treasure box.
That's right. The universe is our mysterious treasure box. That reminds me of a Rumi quote. He says something like, "Think yourself small when the entire universe is contained within you." Get metaphysical. Yeah.
We could do that. We could get really metaphysical up in here, man.
Oh yeah. Oh, we'd be doing it. But
yeah.
So we're gonna be trying broadcast stuff for this time, and in the future we might try more things like video. We could watch videos and react to them live and do that sort of thing. But right now we're gonna try to stick to just images with the crawl, and we've prepared a few stories to go over, right, Sarv?
Yes, we have. Yep. So let's get to the topics we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, let's get right into it. The first one is Juneteenth. You'll notice that we're recording this on June 18th. Sarv and I both had time off of work in observation of Juneteenth, which has been declared a national holiday in 2021 for the first time. But the official date of Juneteenth is June 19th, which falls on a Saturday this year. So Sarv, what do you know about Juneteenth, the holiday? Now that we're celebrating it nationally, it seems like something we should learn a little more about.
My cursory understanding is something to the effect of the African Americans or the black people of USA. They didn't know that they had the right to vote. I forgot what year that was. Do you remember the year?
Yeah, so Juneteenth commemorates an event on June 19th, 1865, which is 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation from Abraham Lincoln.
So a lot of people didn't know that they could vote. They were living life as before the Emancipation Proclamation. And I think the Juneteenth started as a way of raising awareness of how the injustices still continued even after Emancipation Proclamation.
Correct. Yeah, it's sort of and when you look at the history of racism in this country, you see that it's not like there was just a day where racism ended, but there was a constant sort of mutation of racism taking different forms. And so even though slavery was sort of ended with the Emancipation Proclamation, that message didn't really reach everywhere, and it didn't apply everywhere.
Right.
And so there was this guy, he was a Union Army general. His name was Gordon Granger. He rode into the town of Galveston, Texas, and announced in 1865 that that these people were freed, and that the laws applied here as well as the rest of the United States. And I'm looking at an article on BahaiTeachings.org written by Timothy Conley. It's titled Juneteenth, America's Real Independence Day. And in that article, which is an insightful thing, he talks about the history of Juneteenth and his own experiences as a Baha'i and a African-American male. He says that at the time, there were 250,000 enslaved individuals of the Africana community which provided for the wealth of Texas's economy as unpaid slave labor. And the news that Robert E. Lee had surrendered, it took more than 2 months to spread throughout Western Texas, and the Emancipation Proclamation hadn't been enforced. And so the slavers, even after the Emancipation Proclamation, continued to beat, lynch, and murder free people who were trying to leave their plantations in Texas.
Oh.
And so even at the year after General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas to sort of say, look, this is the law now and all these slaves are free. On the first anniversary of it, there were segregation laws coming out, and they prohibited the use of public spaces and parks to celebrate Juneteenth. So along with this sort of celebration of the abolition of slavery that Juneteenth is, there is a legacy of sort of trying to oppress Juneteenth and trying to stop it from happening.
Right. So today is a historic day, isn't it? Because legislation passed to make it a national holiday, right?
That's right. That's right. So this year, it's being recognized as a national holiday. Juneteenth is to celebrate the legacy of the United States ending slavery and moving past that sort of shared trauma that our country has of historically oppressing a whole group of people.
I think the first time I learned about Juneteenth was when I moved to Minnesota. I'd never heard about it before. I never had a conversation about Juneteenth in California. But when I came here in 2017, I was made aware of Juneteenth. And a lot of the Baha'i community in St. Cloud, Minnesota, they actually hold, like, you know, those events at the park. Like last weekend, I went to St. Cloud. There was a, you know, Baha'i community was there. It was a Juneteenth day, even though it wasn't the right day for Juneteenth, but they celebrated it last weekend. And I was out there with the Baha'i community. They had like a table there with their Baha'i faith sign, and there were so many like a rectangle shaped of tables with information about Juneteenth and other things, other related groups. And it was a great day. You know, I got to talk to a lot of people about the Baha'i faith and learn about Juneteenth, and see my friends. So it was a great day that day, I remember.
Yeah, man. I actually didn't know about Juneteenth very much until this year when I got the day off work. You know, and I think that the conversation around race in this country has sort of been advancing. And so I think that we're able to have more in-depth conversations at the national level about the legacy of slavery and
right,
you know, what it's meant for this country and what were some of the important parts in moving past it beyond the Emancipation Proclamation.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's really cool that this is a national holiday. It's probably overdue, and I imagine that probably there will be a holiday similarly that honors sort of the oppression and suffering of the Native American people.
Agreed.
I think that it's something that this country hasn't really fully reckoned with the same way it hasn't reckoned with the legacy of slavery. You know, the Native American people, the indigenous peoples of what's now the United States have suffered incredibly.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same kind of thing that historically, you know, there's been so many different layers upon layers of it. Even when there's been one step forward, there's been steps back.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's something that hopefully the dialogue can similarly advance in a way where we start to appreciate, you know, the historical forces that are affecting so many people.
Agreed.
So negatively. But yeah, so happy Juneteenth to everybody.
Happy Juneteenth.
We're hoping to start go to a celebration, but it's not going to be tomorrow because where we live in Madera and Fresno, it's going to be like 114 degrees. And so the celebration's supposed to be at 3:00, but I think they just postponed it. I think it's actually going to be celebrated a week late out here because going out to a parade and concert and being in the park with people, it ain't it right now, basically.
Yeah, gotta keep dehydrated and AC. It's gonna be hot.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's going to be tough out here. So we'll be celebrating it. We intend on going to the celebration, but it's going to be delayed. So when it happens, we'll be there.
All right.
So let's move along to the next slide. We've got World Refugee Day, which is coming up on June 20th. And World Refugee Day, I didn't know this at all until we were researching what slides to do for the for our broadcast this week. And apparently World Refugee Day is June 20th, and it honors the it is, let me explain. I'm looking at literature from the United Nations website, and it says that there's going to be a Chamber Music Society virtual concert to honor World Refugee Day on Sunday, June 20th. It will be at 9 a.m. Eastern Conference time, 4 p.m. In Mafraq, Jordan time. So it says, on the occasion of World Refugee Day, the UN Chamber Music Society of the UN Staff Recreation Council, in partnership with the UN Refugee Agency, is holding a pre-recorded virtual concert, which will also be broadcast in Jordan. Refugees and other displaced populations belong to the most marginalized and vulnerable members of society. They are particularly at risk during the time of coronavirus disease outbreak, and because they've limited access to water, sanitation systems, and health facilities. And so the music program will feature Jordanian singer Lin Al-Fiqh, and a world premiere of the Songs of Five Continents from the UN Chamber Music Society, composed by Yuko Iwabashi, and a repertoire composed by classically trained Syrian musicians. So in order to bring awareness about refugees, they're holding this concert on June 20th, which is the UN's World Refugee Day.
So that's a new thing. Is that another refugee day that's been legislated into as one of those like holidays kind of thing?
Well, this is from the UN. So the United States government honored Juneteenth as a national holiday. The UN is an international body, but it doesn't have the same sort of authority over people's day-to-day life that the national government does. In fact, I mean, the UN is like mostly a symbolic thing. I would say it's fair. It sort of represents countries' sort of attempts to come together and have some sort of shared ideas, but it's valuable. You know, it's very important that these different countries learn how to work together to solve these global problems.
Exactly.
But I don't think that the UN has the ability to like give us the day off from work, declare things a holiday in the same way that when the UN does these kinds of days, it's mostly to spread awareness, I feel like.
Got it.
Yeah, but in that spirit, so this concert is going to be taking place. You can watch it through YouTube and through the UNHCR Jordan Facebook page and UN Web TV. Also, let's explore a little bit about the background of refugees.
Sure.
You see that link that I sent you on our schedule, right, Sarv?
Yes, sir.
So if you click that, you'll open it up. You scroll down a little bit, you'll see that there's a little bit of background about refugees.
Yeah.
And it says that a refugee, according to the UN website, is defined as someone who has fled their home or country owing to a well-founded fear of persecution because of his or her race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. According to the 1951 Refugee Convention, many refugees are in exile to escape the effects of natural or human-made disasters. So basically, if somebody is afraid of some sort of persecution or oppression, they can leave their home or country and seek refugee status. So a lot of us, there's people who are asylum seekers who want to be refugees, but it's not proven that they are sort of have a well-founded fear of persecution, that they don't have a good reason basically to leave their country. There's also internally displaced persons, people who are refugees but haven't left their country. They've just moved from one part of their country to another.
Yeah.
And there's also the classification of stateless persons. I didn't know this, but a stateless person is someone who does not have any recognized nationality and does not belong to a country. And these statelessness situations are usually caused by discrimination against certain groups. So if they don't have identification, they can be excluded from government services, including healthcare, education, and employment.
Like Assyrians. Or I'm trying to think of examples of stateless.
So I don't know that I can't come up with specific groups of people who are like identified as stateless, but basically there's like Assyrians right now, they don't have their own country, right? They exist in the Middle East in different countries. I know there's Assyrians in Iran. There's also some in Iraq, right?
That's right.
And so it's like a group of people, but they don't have their own country. So theoretically, if if a government said Assyrian people don't have sort of like, they don't get any ID, they don't get access to sort of school or healthcare or or jobs, they're not allowed to work in this country. And if anybody would go to an Assyrian person and say, no, I'm Iranian, I'm from Iran, but the Iranian government says, no, they're not, then that person is stateless because there's no way for them to prove where they're from,
That's right.
It's just their word against the country's word, but there's no way for them to prove this is where they're from, so they're stateless.
That's tough.
And I don't know whether that happens with Assyrian people or not. I really don't know.
I don't know either.
I have no reason to think it does, but that was an example you came up with.
I was just trying to think of examples, but I guess that's not a good example.
No, because there's no reason to think that would happen, but this is just a purely hypothetical in my mind. But anyway, the 1951 Refugee Convention, so this is something that sort of helped define these terms. And in 1967, there was a protocol established by the UN to help deal with some of these questions.
Yeah.
Because apparently refugees are some of the most vulnerable people in the world. That when somebody is a refugee, they don't have a home and they don't have a lot of stability in their life, and so they can be really mistreated by other people with bad intentions, basically, when they don't have a real home and they don't have sort of access to government services. People don't know who they are or where they're supposed to be.
Or they risk health-wise too.
Right. And right now during COVID-19, it's hard for them to get access to shots because they don't know where to go and people don't know where to find them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's honor them and remember them, pray for them, wish them to have access to the necessities of life that we all take for granted. Yeah. It's
a serious thing. The UN has a whole section of itself devoted to refugees.
Right.
And it's saying that the world is currently witnessing the highest levels of displacement on record. There are 70.8 million people around the world who have been forced from their home by conflict and persecution at the end of 2018. And among them are nearly 30 million refugees, half of whom are under the age of 18. There are also millions of stateless people who have been denied a nationality and access to basic rights such as education, healthcare, employment, and freedom of movement. So I think that maybe we should do a little research about this issue of refugees.
Yeah.
And maybe come back next week and learn a little bit more about some of the groups that are suffering.
Sure. Let's do that.
Okay, anyway, so there's going to be a concert on World Refugee Day, which is June 20th, this Sunday. And the last item that we have, obviously, anytime we talk about news, we have to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. It sort of disrupted everyone's life for a year. And so even though in the United States, California reopened on June 15th, A lot of businesses have removed a lot of restrictions for the capacity of events and for the way that their businesses operate, in terms of like mask wearing and safety protocols. Still around the world, a lot of countries are really struggling to deal with COVID-19, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the news story that I found was from the World Health Organization. It is, I've got to click my own link. It is about a commitment that was made by the United Kingdom. So it said, this was a story from the World Health Organization dated June 13th. And it said, at the close of this year's G7 Leaders Summit, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland announced a donation of an additional 870 million vaccine doses from attendees, with the majority to be delivered through COVAX, the vaccines pillar of access to COVID-19 tools accelerator within the next year. Attendees included heads of G7 member states, plus Australia, India, South Africa, and Republic of Korea as invited guests. So the G7 have agreed to donate 870 million vaccines for low and middle income countries over the next year, which is, you know, obviously close to 1 billion people.
Yes.
Trying to get the world vaccinated,
yes,
as quickly as possible.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and you know, the G7 is the short version of the group of seven. It's 7 countries, which are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the UK, and the US.
Yep.
So these are sort of the 7 major governments in the West that are identified as the G7 that have made this commitment.
That's fantastic, right?
Yeah. You know, I think that the United States has sort of shown that when you have access to the vaccine, even though not everyone is getting it,
yeah,
I think in California, it's sort of gotten to the point where everyone who wants the vaccine can get it. Like in where I live, they give it away in like Walgreens and in Walmart, you can get it. CVS, you can just show up to like a pharmacy and say, I want to get the COVID-19 vaccine, and they'll just give it to you.
That's right.
Right there.
That's right.
And you don't need you don't have to pay anything. You don't have to schedule anything ahead of time. You can just show up and get it. And so I think, and it's been like that for a while. So I think it's at this stage now where, except for vulnerable people who they're not cleared for health reasons to get it, or people under the age of, I think the cutoff is what, 17?
Right.
Maybe 16, I think.
16 is, I think so.
So people under that age can't get it yet, but everyone else can get it, you know? And so everyone who wants it, I think for the most part where I live, has had plenty of time to get it. So now it's sort of like,
and I think US is at a point where there is a lot of availability, but not everybody's getting it.
And I think not everyone is going to get it. I think that maybe some people will over the next few months, but I think for the most part, people who it's a priority for have access to it and have been able to do it. So I think the US is starting to reopen, you know. I think that a lot of concerts I've seen through my day job are going to operate hopefully at full capacity, 100% capacity in arenas and stadiums, because it seems like at this point, the conventional sort of wisdom is that everyone who wants the vaccine can get it, you know? So if somebody chooses not to get vaccinated, that puts themselves and other non-vaccinated people sort of more at risk, but according to the science. But if that's not a concern, then you don't slow down the economy for those people's sort of decisions anymore. Because if at this point a lot of people aren't getting vaccinated, that's their decision.
That's their decision.
And so it's not going to change. You can't force people to do it.
They'll suffer the consequences either way.
Well, we all suffer consequences of our decisions. Yeah, but you can't force people to do it. Short of forcing people to get the vaccine, you know, you have to proceed. You have to move to the next stage.
Yep.
Because everyone who wants it is going to get it.
That's right.
So yeah, now the focus hopefully can be towards helping other countries.
And I think even if not everybody gets it, with those who are getting it, whether it's all of the U.S. or not, or worldwide or not, those who are getting it, I think we will reach a point in my I believe, I'm hypothesizing that the coronavirus will weaken because of wide range of vaccinations. I don't think the COVID will have the chance to get worse. Hopefully, that's the hope, that the less transmission, the less efficacy, the less mutation.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's cross our fingers on that one. Yeah.
Prayers up. Yeah, and those steps are being taken.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So
yes,
we've got a hidden words to talk about now.
It's not the hidden words, but it is a quotation from Baha'u'llah.
It's a quote from Baha'u'llah. All right.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah. So this is a quote that was actually, it was mentioned in the in that article about Juneteenth I mentioned, that was written by Timothy Conley, and it's a pretty common sort of commonly referenced quote from Baha'u'llah, where he says, "The earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens." And the longer sort of quote, I'll read it here, is, "That one indeed is a man who today dedicateth himself to the service of the entire human race. The great being saith, blessed and happy is he that ariseth to promote the best interests of the peoples and the kindreds of the earth." In another passage, he proclaimed, "It is not for him to pride himself who loveth his own country, but rather for him who loveth the whole world. The earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens." Yeah, and so it just seemed particularly relevant as we're talking about the issue of Juneteenth and the oppression of one particular group of people.
Yes.
And also Refugee Day.
Yes.
These people from around the world that are suffering because of these questions of nationality. I think that what Baha'u'llah is talking about here is that these lines of country are really arbitrary, and it's not for us to sort of make decisions and base our priorities around people within our country, but rather people in the whole world.
Yes.
It's not like you can say you only love people from one part of the world, but not people from another part of the world, because in reality, these problems like COVID and refugees, they affect everybody,
And climate change.
Yeah.
There's a lot of global social issues that impact us all despite our barriers.
Yeah.
And I think COVID-19 is really showing that we need a global effort to combat something like coronavirus. And we are.
Yeah.
We are doing it.
Yeah, we're learning how. I think we're learning how to have these conversations and how to sort of orient ourselves to even thinking about these questions.
Yeah.
Because, I do think that we got to think about, even though we were talking about the UN and how it doesn't really have the ability to impact our day-to-day in the same way that our national government does, right? Like the US can declare Juneteenth a national holiday, and I get that day off work. And that's great.
Yeah.
But I think also, that issue is more related to the United States and this particular area's region of this history of dealing with racism. But there's this bigger question of, racism is an issue that goes far beyond the United States. It's something that all around the world, different countries and different people have to deal with in different ways.
Exactly.
And it's something that humanity as a whole has to grapple with, this question of racism.
Yep.
And in the United States, that takes a specific form.
Yep.
And it's useful to have something like Juneteenth to frame that conversation. But all around the world, there's these different conversations that can happen about moving beyond racism, and history of racism and how it and its effects, and how to be aware of that and how to heal from that.
Yeah.
You know.
And the challenge of trying to define our identity as a human family, right? I mean, how do you define that? Like, how do you? I mean, obviously Baha'u'llah defined it for us, but how does that look in action? You know, like what's gonna happen to nationalism? You know, what's gonna happen to statehood? What's gonna happen to all, you know, everything we're used to about this is my country and that's your country? What's gonna happen to that? You know, does that have a place in a world that's one?
And I think that even the notion of country, I think, is becoming less sort of uniting. I think that this quote, um, it reminds me of another quote from Baha'u'llah. It is not for him who loveth his country, but rather for him who loveth his kind.
Yeah.
You know, all mankind. And so there's this thing of, some people would say we don't have to worry about other countries' issues. That's their problem, right? And so we only focus on our own house, right?
Yes.
Like you can only, this is the logic is that I can only take care of my family. So I only worry about what goes on in my house.
Exactly.
And other people's families, other people's houses, that's their business. So I take care of mine and they take care of theirs. What's mine is mine and what's theirs is theirs.
Yeah.
Right? So the problem with this is that people's problems don't stay in their houses, right? Like even just at the local example, right? Like if you were only just staying in your home and only focusing on your home, then, you know, what if the neighbors all have social issues that are like big problems? Like what if there's gangs and shootings and drugs and, you know, prostitution and, you know, homelessness? What if there's all these social issues going around you in your community? And, you know, the only way to move past these issues is to help the people heal. And so obviously, you could also just leave, but then if those issues don't get fixed, you know, they can grow and more parts of town can be consumed by these social issues if there's not healing happening, if people aren't investing energy in healing these people that are suffering. And so that then, you know, the problem can grow, say with this issue of gangs, it can grow and spread into more parts of town. And it can become something that even in your new home, you know, can continue to affect you.
Agreed.
You know, we're connected and we affect each other just by existing
And
in each other's presence.
And I think the conversation we need to have is one where, as a collective, we raise our understanding about how we affect each other and being sensitive to that reality. Like we affect each other. That's a real thing, you know? Our actions are not, they don't go unnoticed. They don't go without affecting anything. It's a ripple effect. Everything we do is a ripple effect, which means we should take our actions more seriously, really be thoughtful about, you know, how we close the door, how we say hello to each other, you know, what words we use, because we have to say, believe and understand it affects. Our words, it really has an effect, whether we like it or not, you know. So now the matter is, how are we going to change the way we think about it so that whatever actions and words and characteristics or behavior we use is thought out really well and kind of focused on helping people and being of service rather than making things worse or ugly.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the idea of being a citizen, not just of our government and doing what our government and our local culture sort of requires, but, you know, of the world and thinking about what humanity needs. And these are big questions that we don't necessarily have answers for, but this is just sort of, I think that having our vision sort of be broad and learning how to address these questions and the idea of like all of humanity has these same issues that we need to grapple with, like racism and like the persecution of specific groups.
Yeah.
And then from there, in our day-to-day lives, we have to find ways to take action that are not going to be the same in the United States as they are in another country.
For sure.
Even in different parts of the United States, it's not going to be the same.
Yep.
But but we have to, we have to learn how to take action with that consciousness of being part of a global process.
Yeah.
Healing.
Very well then. This was good. This was good. I struggled a little, I'll be honest, on some of the pictures and changing the scroll. I think I'll find a better system next time for that stuff. So it's a little bit more.
I can't even see the overlay. I'm talking to a giant black box right now, so it's.
I'm so sorry. You'll see the product, but I think overall, I think this is a good video. We should go with it.
You want to put it on your Elevated and Meaningful channel?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let's get it up. Let's try to do something. Let's try to do something positive. If you have a reaction to this video, if we said something offensive or wrong, please let us know. You know, we have no intention of offending anybody or doing anything negative, and we're always willing to learn from our mistakes. I think it's really important to say. And if you have input stuff that you think we should be talking about, or ideas for the format of this sort of a broadcast, let us know. You know, comments, reach out. It's all good.
Exactly. Do that. If you have any ideas or comments, we will put this up on my YouTube channel, and I'll try to extract the audio for our podcast.
All right. Well, anything else before we wrap up, Sarv?
That's it. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
All right. One love, everybody. Take care.